So a year ago, a little over a year ago, back in March of 2017, I started this channel. But I really didn't begin posting until I think it was late April 20th, something like that. And at that point, frankly, my posting was a little bit sporadic because I really didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to do YouTube videos. So I started doing them, and little by little, I got into my groove. I experimented with different approaches, and they sort of failed because it just wasn't my style. My style was, and still is, minimalist, trying to get the most out of just a specific location. Because what happens is that when I go out into the world and try to film stuff on the street, I try to make it perfect, and it doesn't work out. And so it's just better for me, and so far as my temperament as a YouTuber, to just have a little studio space and try to get the most out of that little studio space. Now, back in, the channel started, as I said, in March, and in late April, early May, I really started posting. And really in June, July, that's when I really started getting going. At one point, I was posting a new video every day. And then I was doing some projects in London. I was living in London at the time. I had my studio there. And finally, let me see, it must have been late January of 2018, my videos started petering out because I was finishing up a big project I was doing in London, some changes in my life, in the real world, as it were. And finally, I moved from London. I moved from London to Kharkov in Ukraine. This is my new studio. The fact of the matter is that, I started renting the studio about, 2 months ago, a month and a half ago or something like that. And I actually started shooting footage to do I'm building a new studio and shit like that. And that was pretty much of a disaster. Just a non-starter. I mean, that kind of Casey Neistat kind of thing, I'm just not good at it. And some of you might know that I'm completely addicted to these woodworking channels, where woodworkers build stuff. I mean, I love those, right? But I myself, first of all, I'm not really into carpentry. I like, fiddling around with woodwork and stuff, but I don't really care, right? And secondly, I'm horrible at trying to film stuff. At one point, I was all set to describe how I built this table, this U-shaped table, which is pretty cool, actually. It's 8 linear meters. And 8 linear meters of desk front, which is pretty cool. Anyway. What happened was that I tried to film it, and it was a fucking disaster. It was so frustrating because, at the key moments, when I had set everything up to saw something, actually sawing this tabletop, as a matter of fact, right at that moment, my camera stopped shooting right when I was about to cut it. It was just so frustrating, and so fuck it, And sometimes I'd forget to shoot, and other times I didn't know how to shoot it. It was just a big mess. Look, I'm this kind of YouTuber. I do these minimalist videos, and they're fun for me, and I really enjoy them. And I've been postponing the restart of the channel, postponing the start of season 2, because I've been trying to think really hard about what I want to achieve in the second season. Because apart from the videos, I'm doing some other stuff. Now I'm going to go through them. So first, they're the videos, and I want to be doing 3 videos a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. I used to be able to do live stream, but I got a community guideline strike just the other day, as a matter of fact, and now I can't stream for 3 months, which is actually pretty good. Because a while back, when my produced videos petered out, I started doing streams. And what happened was that these streams, I thought, well, I can do them. I just have to, prepare myself and start talking, and do the stream. And these streams weren't very good because I just babbled. I babbled and I went on and on and on, and I didn't have the ability to edit myself as I do when I do these produced videos. And so the videos I did by streaming were sort of big baggy monsters. I just didn't like them. So anyway, I took them down and just sort of kept the channel on standby, figuring out my next move. But at the same time, I was doing other projects. Those other projects being, well, apart from the videos, I started doing a podcast that I'm going to discuss in some detail in a little bit. A podcast with a guy called Dr. Benway. Now, Dr. Benway is a guy I met via Twitter. I started swapping DMs because we started talking about books over direct messages. And it was a great conversation. He was a smart man, very well read. And over the months, we started getting getting to be friends, frankly, and we'd have these great conversations. We'd shoot the breeze over the phone, over Skype, and it was just fun. It was just a lot of fun to be talking about different stuff, about politics, about economics, because the guy in the real world is a consultant and he knows a bit about business. We were talking about books and movies and artwork and all the rest of it, and having just these great chats that go on for an hour, no problem, just shooting the breeze with like a friend you'd know, right? Great tennis matches, you know what I mean? Just whacking the ball back and forth over the net, just having a great old time. And so we came up with the idea of doing it as a podcast, and we've been doing it. So far, as I'm recording this video, we've got, 4 or 5 hour-long podcasts that are out there. I'll put the link in the description below. And we've got another half dozen or so podcasts that are in the can that they'll be coming out on schedule. Our schedule is 4 podcasts a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And as you can see on the free days that we're not doing podcasts, I'm putting out a video. So you're going to have every day a little bit of coach content, if you will. So anyway, so there's the podcast. But the really big thing that I've been doing that's really important to me is a project that I have been working on for almost 10 years now. It's a project called A Secret History of the American Crash, and it's a novel. Now, this novel had a very interesting development, because what happened was that, see, back in 2009, the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, everything was going straight to hell. And I thought to myself, well, what happens if the world really does go to hell? What happens if the global financial system completely collapses? What would be the effects? Okay, so I started writing like an oral history of it, as a game, just for fun, for my own amusement. And over the months, I was very busy with real world stuff, but I would every once in a while, whenever I had an opportunity, maybe a free day or whatever, I'd just jot down ideas or write a few thousand words just for fun. And let me see, I started this in 2009, and right around 2014 or so, I had enough to make a manuscript. I had a couple hundred, close to 300 pages of manuscript. And so I started shopping them around to literary agents and publishers, because as you may know, I used to publish thrillers back in the day, back in the late 90s. And I thought maybe this would be a fun project to get back into publishing. But that's when I discovered that publishing had left me behind, because the unanimous consensus was that it was too controversial, because some of the issues that I touched upon were just, no, they weren't digging it, right? I briefly tried to self-publish the book, thinking that, because I'd heard that a lot of people were self-publishing books, and I tried to do it and discovered it's incredibly complicated and difficult, because it just requires a whole boatload of time, time principally being the issue, and you have to have a social media presence and all that crap, and I didn't have time for that. So screw that. And I forgot about it. I forgot about the book, but it sort of gnawed at me, the idea of writing a novel about the apocalypse, about what it would look like realistically for the apocalypse to happen. So that's why I started developing. I started writing more and more material after 2014, after the publishers had shot me down, for my own amusement, and I just started, accreting material, every a few weeks, or whenever I was bored or something like that. This would be a good idea to jot down, and I'd jot down a few thousand words and forget about them. And let me see, in mid-2017, I was getting a new computer, and I was rummaging through all my crap, and I came across all this material, and I added it up, and it was a lot of material. It was about 500 pages. So I started fiddling with it more, the second half of 2017, and what's transpired so far of 2018, I've been writing a lot of material, and I see that it's going to be a finished book. And I see too that you who watch my videos, who like my content, you're the perfect audience, right? Because it's just more Coach Insanity, but in a big book, right? It's pretty fucking cool. It's an apocalyptic novel, but it explains how we got to the apocalypse, okay? Because a lot of novels, right, that, like The Road or whatever, they just say, okay, it's the apocalypse, or it's a dystopia, or whatever. We just arrive there. You read The Hunger Games, for instance, which is a horrible series of novels, but whatever. You read those books, right, and the dystopian future is just posited. You never know how they got there, right? But in The Secret History, I'm trying to explain how the apocalypse happened, how the end of the world, or at least the end of the United States happens, right? And so I started writing more and more and more, and it's becoming like a huge monster. I project that it's going to be about 750, 800 pages long, right? And I got a lot of it done, most of it done. Okay, I expect that I'll be done within 3 to 6 months, as a matter of fact. And so I'm going to start releasing it. As a matter of fact, right below in the description, you're going to find a link to the first part of the book. I don't know, it's like about 150 pages or something like that. And I'm just distributing it in manuscript form. I'm not bothering to format it at this time. And I know it has a bunch of spelling mistakes and crap like that, the typical stuff that a copy editor would check up on. But I just want to get your impression of it, because I'm putting it out there for you. I'm going to be doing The Secret History for fun. And just as I'm doing this channel for fun, and just as I'm doing the podcast for fun, because it's a cool hobby. It's a cool thing to do. And I think, frankly, that an art that is more deliberately tailored, not to the people who pay you, which are editors and publishers, but to the people who actually want to read it, which is you guys. I think it's more honest, more fun, okay? So I'm distributing that first chunk of the book, part 1, in the description below. And you're gonna have to wait a while for part 2, but I think you're gonna get a sense of what the novel is gonna be like. And you might get a sense of why the publishing industry is very negative about publishing it, But anyway, so there's that. Now, insofar as Coach and Benway, the podcast that I'm doing, also link in the description below to the SoundCloud account, where you can see all our podcasts. Well, the idea of the Coach and Benway podcasts is for me to shoot the breeze about stuff that I can't really talk about in a video. Like, for instance, like this morning, as I'm recording this, I wake up this morning and the Schneiderman, the New York Attorney General, he just resigned over some sex scandal, which is funny as hell if you ask me, and richly deserved, okay? Because I think that the son of a bitch, right, he was an evil fuck who didn't prosecute any of the evil doings going on back in 2008 in the global financial crisis. I mean, the whole fucking thing was, the epicenter of that crisis was New York City. And he did not prosecute a one of those guys. He acted tough, he talked tough, but at the end of the day, he kowtowed to the moneyed interests. The moneyed interests who have made a mockery of capitalism, made a mockery of the rule of law. Okay, so for him to be getting his comeuppance, it's karma at work, and I thank karma, okay? I think it's grossly unfair how he's getting torpedoed, right? But because it's basically the word of a couple of women who are just claiming this stuff. There's no proof, there's no evidence, there's no nothing. It's just he said, she said, and his career is ruined, right? I think that's grossly unfair, although he is richly deserving of comeuppance, okay? But those are two different things. But you see this issue here. This is a very small issue that if I do a video, I have to go on for like 10 minutes about this shit, when, I can dispatch it in just a few minutes, right? And 2 or 3 minutes at tops, right? And so I needed like an outlet so I can, shoot the shit about what's going on, a minute or two, maybe 5 tops, and then move on to the next thing. And also talk about books, talk about music, talk about film, the stuff that I'm interested in that I don't really feel fits into the videos. Because at the end of the day, I started the Coach Red Pill channel on YouTube to make videos. And I have the cringy as fuck name, Coach Red Pill. Eesh, it still makes me feel. Well, why did I name it that? Okay, and here I'm going to end this, but making it clear where I'm going with the channel. You see, Coach Red Pill, he's an older guy who knows what's going on. Not because he's smarter, okay? I'm not smarter than you. I'm just as bright as you, or perhaps even less bright. You're probably smarter and more educated and more knowledgeable than I am about a whole host of issues that are very important. But you see, I'm older. I'm a 50-year-old guy. I'm an old fart. I've seen shit. I've seen a lot of shit. And again, not because I'm better. It's just a function of me having been around for a longer period of time than you have, right? And my thinking is, especially with all this bullshit talk about incels and people shitting on guys who are, what's incel? Involuntary celibates. These are guys who can't get laid. They want to get laid, but they can't. Why? Because they don't have the social tools to do so, because they haven't been taught how to do so. And to tell you the truth, this whole incel thing has really made me like reevaluate what I'm trying to achieve with this channel. It's precisely a channel for incels and people who are not perhaps incels, but pretty goddamn close and who know it. The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine I made online, great kid. He's just turned 20. He's a great kid, and I know him enough that I think that he's going to go really far in life. But there are a lot of things that he doesn't know shit about, not because he's stupid, he's not, he's smart as a whip. He doesn't know about them because he didn't have a man in his life to tell him, okay? To tell him, to explain how the world is. Now, it's a horrible thing. Now, this kid, he's in college, he's a smart kid, he has a sort of grasp of girls, but not too tight. He doesn't quite understand women. And I tell him shit, and he doesn't quite believe me, I suspect. But he knows enough that maybe he thinks that I'm right, you know? And I'm thinking about his situation. And then, you know, I think about these, you know, black kids, these young black kids in some ghetto, someplace like that, you know. They're hanging out with gang members and what have you. And I realize that this very bright kid, he's in university, he's very sharp, in a very good college, very good university. He's got a bright future ahead of him. He's involved in politics at the college level. He's sharp as anything, but he doesn't know shit about women, about how to handle certain situations. And then I look at these black inner city youths who don't know shit about anything, and they wind up gravitating towards gangs. And the cause of the problem is the same, because these young men don't have any men in their lives. They don't have a father or a grandfather to tell them, you know, how shit is. They don't have a coach, you know. And I think that that's what I want to do. I mean, let me rephrase that. It is what I want to do. As I told you last year, the whole point of this channel was for me to leave a record for my kid, for my 3-year-old boy. He just turned 3, as a matter of fact. My son is 3 years old, and by the time he's 30, I'll likely be dead. And if I'm not dead, I'm going to be a blubbering, drooling imbecile. I won't be able to give him any kind of serious guidance. So that's why I started doing the videos as I did last year. But in the second season, I want to re-emphasize the direction that I'm taking this channel. And the fact that I'm going to have the podcast and the novel is going to be an outlet for all the other shit that is not about the purpose of this channel, which is to explain to bright young men, sort of like what I used to be when I was 19, when I was 20, how the world is and how to get ahead in life. And I insist, it's not because I'm smarter. It's just because I've been around longer, and luckily, I did not forget what it was like to be 19, 20 years old and to have no fucking clue, and to think I knew, but to know at heart that I didn't know shit, and that I was completely unsuccessful at the things I wanted to achieve. With this channel, I'm hoping to essentially speak to that kid that I used to be, and that I know that a lot of my audience members are. Speak to him and explain how the world is, and maybe give him some ideas that'll help him succeed. Yeah, that's the goal. So, that's the start of season 2 of Coach Red Pill's channel, and I hope you enjoy it. And I know that you want some coach clapping. You guys are such losers.